Okay, we are live.
What's up, everybody?
Hello.
Welcome to another episode of Police Off the Cuff After Hours. My name is Mark DeMay. I'm your host. My co-host, my partner in all things law enforcement, the very handsome Bill Cannon. What's up, Bill?
What's going on? How you doing?
I'm doing okay, man. Things are going good. Can't complain.
You were missing in action on Monday. You know, people were asking, where was he, you know?
I know, it killed me not being here, man. I swear to God. I really enjoyed doing this, and I thought it would be no big deal just to skip a show. You skipped two the week before. You went on vacation, and I had a situation where I had another thing I had to do, another gig. So, but I'm really excited to be here tonight. We have a great guest. She's a doctor. She's a PhD in criminal justice. She has a study that she conducted on what are the best personality traits or best personality suited to be a police officer. Can we welcome tonight, excitedly, Aviva Twersky Glasner, PhD. What's up, Doc?
Not too much. Just hanging out. Excited to be here.
Where are you? In Mass?
I'm in Massachusetts, yeah.
Oh, yeah, man.
How come you didn't pick up the accent? Like you're not packing the cat. How come you're not doing that?
Because I grew up in California, and when I was 18, I moved to New York. And the funny thing is, you guys are both NYPD. My dream was to be a cop. And I grew up in San Jose. I wanted to go to San Jose State University and study criminal justice because I think at that time, I'm talking 40-something years ago, that was one of the first colleges to have that as like a major. But I come from a very Orthodox Jewish family, the oldest of 4 girls. And my parents were very strict. They said, no, you're not going to become a cop because you will never meet any nice Jewish boys.
You'll only meet those mean Irish guys that are always drinking.
Uh-huh.
They were just horrified. So they sent me to New York to go to Stern College, Yeshiva University. And that's the women's college.
Where is that? Where was that college?
It was in Manhattan.
Up in Washington Heights.
Is that the one in Washington Heights?
Well, it's the sister, the women's college.
Okay.
But we were in Midtown Manhattan. Oh my God, the dorm, 34th between Park and Madison. It was gorgeous. But I used to like walk as far west as I could in those days and stay safe and look uptown because I knew that John Jay College was there. And I was 18 years old, and I kept saying, one of these days, oh my gosh, I'm going to go there. And, you know.
That's the way I used to feel when I used to walk past the acting schools in New York City. I remember I worked across the street from Lee Strasberg, and I used to go there, and I used to see all the kids hanging out in front of there. And I used to, I was this kid from Astoria, like a tough kid, I'm 18 years old. I wanted to act, but I couldn't tell any of my friends. I was embarrassed. What are they going to say about me? Oh, he wants to be an actor.
You just wanted to wear those tight tights.
But I remember standing in front of just looking at the marquee, like, the plays that are coming up in the school. And I wanted to go there so bad.
I went there.
Uh-huh.
I am also a former actor.
Uh-huh.
And I went to the Strasberg School. And in fact, he was still alive.
Oh, wow.
And I used to see him almost every day.
That's amazing.
I'm a retired businessman seeking sanctuary in the twilight years of my life in Florida. Hyman Roth.
That was good. That was good.
Remember the cake.
I remember.
I want you to enjoy your cake.
I remember the breathing right before he sat down on the couch, like he was having, he had to go into his acting mode, like he was really sick. Remember how they said that Hyman Roth's been dying for 30 years?
Yes.
Dying of the same heart attack for 30 years. Yeah.
I have to say, though, I was very disappointed with his acting.
Really?
Yeah.
What, in The Class, you mean?
No, in Godfather 2.
I thought it was great. I thought he was brilliant.
Really? Well, he was nominated for an Oscar, but
I thought it was brilliant.
Kind of let me down, Yeah,
I really thought it was. I think everybody popped on that. Everybody from the guy Waltz, he was great too. even the guy who never really acted that much anymore either. The guy who got the job because he was connected. What was the one they killed? The one that was going out with the sister, married the sister. He's got a great book. That guy.
Oh, the guy who Talia Shire's husband, the guy who
Yeah, that guy was a real mobster.
Yeah.
He really killed somebody in Miami. He was the guy who was in the cartel. He had to go to Colombia to meet Escobar, and the guy recognized Escobar recognized him from the movie. He let him live. Yeah, you gotta hear this guy's stories. He's incredible, that guy. Okay, so hey, listen, I think maybe when you get to know somebody personally, or when you see them, it changes your opinion sometimes. Like for me, like sometimes people tell me about a comedian that they love, and I know them, and I'm like, the guy's an asshole. So-and-so's an asshole. I don't think they're funny at all, you know?
Yeah.
Or whatever. You know, I go along with it. I'm like, yeah, they're great too. So anyway, let's talk about let's talk about the study that you did. Because this fascinated Bill and I. Bill thought there would be a lot of stuff to talk about in this. You did a study where you basically tell us about it.
Okay, I was still a grad student when I got that published. And I was at John Jay College. Do you mind if I turn on the light? Because I feel like I'm darkness. I'll be right behind me. Is that too much?
Well, sit down. Let's see now. We gotta see when you're sitting down.
Okay.
Good. No, that's fine.
Yeah, no, it's good. That's good.
And I had a professor who was a psychologist, and he worked for the NYPD. He did pre-assessment or pre-employment assessments of police officers. And I don't know if you know him, Philip Bonifacio.
I don't know him, no.
But you're talking about the psych test that you have to take before you get on?
Yeah, but at that time he said that this was many years ago, that there were more than just one that psych tests for.
Well, there's one. There's a written, and then there's you meet with I guess it's the clinician or the psychologist, whatever, and you go over your written.
Okay, because back then they were doing the MMPI, which is the Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory.
Right.
And that has many different scales. It's also been validated over and over again. He used to do house, a tree, and a person, a projective test. And
yeah, we used to have to draw a house, and like people would tell you, put a lot of windows in it and make smoke coming out of the chimney. Yeah. And, and put some flowers in the front because they'll see like you're happy and you got a good attitude. So I drew a guy in the backyard with an axe killing somebody. No, I did not. I wouldn't have been hired if I did that.
Well, I asked him in class one day, I said, what does it look like when somebody is a bad candidate for the police? All right, so this is what a house, a tree, and a person looks like. And he drew it on the board. He goes, but somebody who's a bad candidate might actually have the person hanging from the tree.
Right.
Wow.
Or the tree crashing into the house. And,
But that test you were talking about, the Minnesota or whatever test, that had 1,000 questions, but it was really 100 questions that they asked 10 times each.
Right.
Because they just kept repeating the same.
Yeah.
I get it. Sometimes I get headaches. I never get headaches. Last week I had a headache. Oh, I had a headache the day I went out with my wife. Oh, I never have headache. And it was the same stupid question asked 10 times.
Yeah, it was like I love my mother. I never had an argument with my mother.
Right.
I would do anything for. It was so weird. Like you said, 10 times they'd ask you the same question.
Yeah. Well, that's like the built-in reliability index, because if they're judging the pattern of answers, and they can tell if you're sincerely taking the test or if you're just randomly, putting, a mark inside a bubble.
We got Dr. Stephen Washko says theory is that knot hole in the tree indicates trauma at a point in life. And he said it's 567 questions.
Yeah.
The test.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, so it's long. It's long. It's long, and it could get you.
He said no leaves equals depression. My God, I didn't know that.
Oh wow, wow. There's a lot of
There's a
I
lot
guess
of
it's a
indicators
bunch
that
of
you don't
things
know of.
combined, like no leaves. You put a black cloud over the house. You put like a cemetery in the backyard.
It's Halloween.
I wanted to be an undertaker. I always wanted that job. That's why I drew that. But you know something? What you're talking about, and what academic researchers are talking about, when they have police researchers, they had found out that an officer that was most suited for community policing type officer, that personality, was the officer who was most likely to get killed in a violent encounter.
Yeah, that's because
he thought everyone was nice. He thought everyone in the community was like, you know.
Yeah, like kind of like the Andy Griffith model of community policing.
Right.
And yeah, that type of cop is going to, you know, leave him or herself open. And also they lack the, you know, aggression and what I discussed in my paper. And again, I was citing research. I wrote this paper maybe 15 years ago. So there's probably newer research out there, but with the MMPI, they found that the most unsuitable police officers scored high on paranoid ideation scales. What do they call it? Psychopathic deviant. That's the name of a scale.
Right.
And also the lie scale, that they lied. And that goes back to what I was saying about the validity, internal validity tests, which is why they ask the same question like over and over and over again. And those are the people who really are the worst candidates for policing. But, you know, those people might actually, you know, they're going to survive, but they might be the type of officer that we're seeing so much of these days. You know, like there may be, let's say, I don't know how many cops in the United States, let's say 10,000, 9,999 of them are good cops. But then you get that one and all the focus is on that one person.
Right.
And
but you know, what we hear a lot of, Eva, is that, oh, that was a bad cop. And they said that about Pantaleo, who, you know, with the Eric Garner case, what they said used the illegal chokehold. In my mind, Pantaleo was a great cop. He was just put into a bad situation, and he had no intent on taking Eric Garner's life. That happened, you know, with a string of bad things that occurred. But you know, well, I don't like when people say that. Oh, he's a bad cop. No, he's not. You know, that's the kind of, I would want Pantaleo with me, but having my back. You know, I really would.
You know, it's tough because what the conclusion I came to in that paper, because I discussed all kinds of psychological theories, particularly about the MMPI and characteristics, and also other researchers. The conclusion I came to is that, like, the police personality is really one of occupational socialization. That what occurs on the job is what shapes the personality. So
yeah, well, you know, and they're trying to get away from that because the police department is a paramilitary organization.
yeah,
And people that are pushing police reform are like, why does this have to be modeled against the military? That just shows their ignorance to the whole policing organization. And the other thing was back in like 1969, and those years, they really wanted to take more people coming out of the military. Now they don't want people coming out of the military.
well, I have a friend. He was actually one of my students when I was teaching, who was a captain in the Mass State Police. And he was saying that because in Massachusetts they have the military preference that military people are going to get hired first. But he said that they always wash out, that because either PTSD or they just don't have they don't fit right. They can't think for themselves. They don't have the autonomy to make a decision. And you do it. As a cop, you have to make, split-second decisions.
Right.
Because circumstances can change so quickly.
I think maybe that has to do with when you were in the military. Because when I went through the academy, we weren't really in a wartime. So the people that were coming out of the military that I was in the academy with, they got along just fine. As a matter of fact, they went on to be the company commanders, because that's the way you picked, like the company commander in the academy class was usually somebody who had military experience. And they got along just fine. maybe it's when you come back from a war, I think, or something. But I never saw a problem with anybody who was in the military. They actually were probably one of the better officers when I was working, or I would actually choose to work with somebody who had that type of discipline.
When was that? When you were working with them?
Well, I came on in '92. So if you look at somebody who just came out of doing 4 or 6 years, you're talking about somebody who was probably late '80s, early '90s. So there wasn't really a war going on at that time.
Right.
You could go in, do your time, and come out. But maybe it does have something to do with being in a wartime. But from what I saw on the job, at least here in NYPD, most of the people that had military experience were really good cops.
Okay. Yeah, it's just like '92. That was probably that was after the first Gulf War with George Bush the senior. But a lot of the kids that were coming out of the military when I was teaching had actually been in active war zones.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not a psychologist. I have a master's in forensic psychology and my doctorate's in criminal justice. So, I can't say with any specificity that.
It's a tough word to say, isn't it?
I know.
It's funny. I can't say like 3/4 of the American words, but I could say specificity. Like for some reason that word comes right out. Specificity. I can't say
Aviva, I taught at a college, and I had this great a female who was in my class who was a Marine, and she was in Iraq, and she would have been a great candidate for the NYPD, but they wouldn't even take her because she had PTSD.
Okay.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and I mean, she was a leader. She was smart. She had all the skills like they would have loved, and she was just disqualified right out of the box for that.
Did they do what kind of psych testing did they do?
No, I mean, if you even admit to PTSD, you're disqualified. I don't even think you get to the psych test,
Wow.
Hey, don't you think it's safe to say that if you wanted to take and become a police officer right now, like in New York City or any one of these big cities, that you should fail the psychological just based on that? Like, what's the matter with you? You haven't read a newspaper? How could you want this job right now? Something's got to be seriously wrong with you. What the hell? Don't you watch the news?
I still want to be a cop, but I'm way too old. If they ever started recruiting senior citizens,
you could go down to Florida and get on one of those gated community police forces.
Yeah, but and
I was thinking about that too. I mean, like it's a shame that well, I got out right after 20, but if I could go back right now just to do like a part-time thing, why not? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't tell you, Detective Pat, who's been on our show numerous times. He was a very colorful character. He was a detective in the 2-3 squad.
Some lead.
He works as a part-time cop right now. he was going to training, and the lieutenant giving the training recognized him from the Police Off the Cuff show. And he said to him, "Are you Detective Pat?" And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "Oh, I love that show." He felt like a little celebrity, you know.
Detective Pat is the best.
The funny stuff. So what do you think about what's going on with the police right now? We'd have to ask you that, the whole defunding thing, the anti-police, you know.
I think that is just part of this whole woke environment, you know, the cancel culture, which is extremely disturbing, and to me. And I'm not like some right-wing person. I'm not even a left-wing person. I'm just, you know, middle of the road. But you know, people who scream about that, they really do need to understand what's going on, and how the majority of departments don't have incidents like that.
Right.
You know, I mean, yeah, we've had a spate of them, and I really deplore those officers who committed those acts. I really, you know, like Derek Chauvin. You know, I do think he was guilty of murder, and I think that it was disgraceful. But what you have to, you know, weigh in the balance is, you know, he did that against how many officers there are, against how many citizen and police encounters.
Right. A surgeon right now in California is killing a patient. And when he does, is a surgeon in New York going to be penalized for it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're the only profession that happens in. A cop does something in Minnesota, and the entire nation's police are vilified over it.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you a question. Since you have, you know, you've studied psychology and all that, where are we right now mentally as a nation when you can pull over, I don't know what she was. Now that her name finally made the thing. I'm sorry that I didn't pull up her name. I wish I could just forget.
She was also a professor, Mark.
Yeah, well, I was going to say college teacher because I don't know if she was actually a professor, but one of her comments was, "You're not even white. You wish you were white," because she was talking to a Mexican officer, and she said, "Did you see the incident?"
Yeah, she was saying, I don't want you to pull me over. You're going to murder me."
Yeah, you're going to murder me, and you know, it just happened to be all caught on tape. I mean, just the complete.
And she happened to be an African American, and she was
Yeah.
putting down this Mexican police officer.
Well, they found out who she was, and they've been posting it now. But you know, we're talking about a situation right now where you're grasping at, you're looking at somebody, and you're looking at their name on their shield, and you're saying to yourself, "Oh, he's Mexican, but you wish you were white. You'll never be white," she said. Like, where are we as a society right now where, "Oh, you're going to murder me"? It's a car stop because I forget even what the car stop was for.
She was on her cell phone.
Oh yeah, she was on her cell phone, and she was still on her cell phone the whole time. She's just,
you know, things have changed so much, because if I would have ordered someone for a license, registration, insurance card, and they didn't give it to me, there was no supervisor coming to the scene. I was pulling them out through the window, and I was handcuffing them, and they were going to jail. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
These cops are so patient now because everything's video, on video. And she said, "I want your supervisor." What right does she have to request a supervisor?
Well, the supervisor came. Well,
right, because
I always thought to myself,
everyone is so like afraid to do police work.
I always wanted to see how many supervisors we can go through. Like, let's say she gets pulled over. She's like, "I want to see your supervisor." He goes, "Okay," and the sergeant comes over, and then she goes, "I want to see your supervisor." So then the lieutenant have to call the lieutenant, then the captain, and before you know it, the president of the United States.
You know, I just think that we're in this trap. We have this woke cancel culture, and what I see, because I may not be aware of that situation you were just describing, but I do see a lack of civility.
I know.
Total lack of civility. This notion that you can do whatever you want and nobody is going to be able to say boo to you. You don't have to respect the police. You don't have to respect, you know, there's a social contract with the police that, you know,
You know what's going to happen? When I was a kid growing up here, you can go to a different state, and it was not even a different state. You could be in New York. You could be in New York doing something, and then drive off to Nassau County or Suffolk County and get arrested and like do time for something that you probably would have been let go. So you didn't even have to leave the state. But we're creating a situation right now where states are some states are amping up their laws and really getting tighter and more stringent. And you're going to have these dummies that are going to just float around from one state, go into another state, think they could still do the same thing over here. And next thing you know, they're going to get locked up and do a lot of time. And that will create, like, so you got to know exactly where you're going, where you're traveling.
Mark, perps always knew not to cross that Nassau County border.
Yeah.
Because they knew Nassau County didn't play around.
No.
I don't know if it's still true, but they used to know, no, I ain't doing anything in Nassau. They don't play in Nassau. You know?
Yep.
But I think it's even maybe changed there too.
I mean, if you look at what Florida is doing, what Texas is doing, all these other, like Texas is going to pass a law right now where you don't even have to show ID when you want to buy a gun.
I know.
I mean, like we're going like I forget it. Forget that I said that. I'm not 100% sure that's a fact. I regret saying that. But there is a new law in Texas that is coming up, which is going to make it easier to carry. Let's put it that way. Even though law enforcement's nervous about this law.
Oh yeah.
And that's why I picked up on it. But we're doing this drastic measuring, you know, just to break away from everything that's going on with the federal government, what they're trying to pass. They're going through a complete different thing. So from state to state, laws are going to vary like tremendously.
Yeah. Well, it's a reaction. It's reaction, cancel culture. You know, on the one hand, you have people who totally have a lack of respect for the law,
Mm-hmm.
the law officers, just a total lack of respect. And then you're going to turn around and give those same people the right to own weapons. You know, the state, it just, I don't know. You know, as far as the mood in the country, I am not very optimistic these days.
We got a couple of people. Bill, hi, Ange.
Angie gave us a $10 super chat. Plus, she took pictures of me today. Thank you, Angie, for your great photography down at 35 Worth Street.
What was the pictures for? What are you doing? No headshot?
It's for Ed's podcast. To the point.
No headshot.
Yeah.
We had another. Didn't we have another?
Yeah, we did have another super chat.
I think it was Mike Machulio.
Like Mark Kakuli. I can't say his name. Marcasilli. Mike Marcasilli, right?
Yeah.
You know how you pronounce it?
Are you asking me? There.
Oh, yeah, that's true. You can't pronounce anything.
Well, I could say
Mike Marcasilli. Yeah, I said it right. Not bad for an Irish guy, right?
And Joe Murray comes through.
My God, Joe Murray. Thank you, Joe.
Joe came through this, my taping too. What do you think? We should do the commercials, Bill?
Yeah, I think you go ahead. You want to do your hot sauce commercial?
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. Jeff Levine, he sent us another check. So thank you, Jeff Levine. Ladies and gentlemen, guys and gals, we are sponsored by the best hot sauce in the world. Silk City hot sauce is made in small batches with pure ingredients using locally grown peppers. That is the foundation of every bottle of Silk City hot sauce. There are several flavors from mild to wild, and you got to see the labels. Each sauce features awesome original artwork. Check out the Bobby Biggs Chipotle, Aztec Attack, Badass Jew, Slurp. That's my favorite one, by the way, Badass Jew. Jews know how to eat, man. I always eat whatever they recommend.
Badass Jew, it's the best hot sauce.
Yeah. Slurp, Mango Madness, Climate Change, Maple Dragon, Killer Hot, Ghost Whisper. I eat it. I put it on all my food. I've gone through Bill's. Oh yeah, Jeff, if you're out there, we could use some more. And when I say we, I'm gonna eat Bill's again. It's called silkcityhotsauce.com. That's the website. And if you put in the coupon code for OTC for off the cuff, you'll get a 15% discount. And the bottles are only like $5.99 each, so you can get 4 bottles for $20, and you'll be hooked up for months. Trust me. You'll enjoy it. It's all natural ingredients, and it tastes really, really good. And highly recommend it.
Scotty Wagner, thank you so much for the $4.99 super chat. You guys getting sick and tired of New York? You want to move down to Myrtle Beach? Well, Carol Waters of the Beach Realty Group has been buying and selling property in the Myrtle Beach area for 11 years now. Carol and her husband, Rob Mahan, retired FDNY firefighter, was also a rollover from the NYPD. They work as a team. Carol's been a multi-million-dollar producer for the past 10 years. They have great knowledge of all aspects of the real estate industry. Carol is well known around the Irish community in New York. She worked in Fitzpatrick's Manhattan Hotel for over 20 years behind the stick. Originally born in the Bronx and brought up in County Mayo, Ireland. Contact Carol Waters for all your real estate needs in the Myrtle Beach area. Carol Waters sells Myrtle Beach at gmail.com, 914-261-6681.
I recommended somebody to Carol.
That's great.
A comedy producer from Jersey. His name is James DiBenedetto. So, Carol, if you hear from him, I send him over to you. He's relocating over there. So
everyone's moving down to Florida, though. Florida's overflowing now with New Yorkers.
I would move to South Carolina before I moved to Florida.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like
Florida's.
It's nice.
Florida's too much, man. I don't know. I think I'd rather be over there. I think it's nice, a little bit quieter, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Joan Guerrero says she uses more Tabasco than ketchup.
Oh, yeah?
You know what I think turned people off? When Hillary Clinton had hot sauce in her bag. Remember she said that?
Yeah.
I carry hot sauce in my pocketbook. It was so phony. It was ridiculous.
Maybe she does.
Yeah. And I carry extra clips.
Maybe she
carry extra magazines.
Even if you do, you probably like. I carry Cremora with me because if I have my coffee, I just order it black, and then I use my own Cremora. I don't want to deal with the dairy. Doesn't agree with me. But people do weird things but I'm not gonna break it out in an interview and go, "Hey, I'm down with Cremora."
Oh, that's why you always used to see people
vegan in the house.
You see people stealing Sweet and Low because it was expensive, right?
Oh, back in the day, yeah.
Stealing it from the diner, you know.
I remember I used to use Sweet and Low, but
you have to ask for it. You have to ask for it.
Do you still make it? I thought it wasn't bad for you.
It is. Everything's bad for you.
Yeah, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I have two friends that are doctors at Wake Forest Medical School, and they both said very little has anything to do with you dying earlier than your genetics. And they said as long as you live a relatively healthy life, what's determining life expectancy and a healthy life basically is more your genetics than anything else.
Yeah, predisposed. Yeah. I just want to give a shout out to my friend Bobby Gretler. I worked with him in the task force, and he's going through his cancer battle.
Oh.
And he just got the word that the chemo is not going to work for him anymore after so many bouts of chemo. So I got stories for days. There's people that you work with on the job, and you develop these relationships. And Bobby, the stories that I have are the funny stories, but I can't ever tell people. They're just so bad. They're so bad, but they're so funny. Like it's something that you do, like you tell people in private. But we had great times on the job. That's what you wind up missing about the job the most. And then it's so sad when you see somebody who's sick and you can't help them. I don't know. I wish there was something I can do.
Yeah.
For all the folks out there, even people in the chat, we're coming up on the 20th anniversary of 9/11, and most of the people that watch this show, a lot of people were there, and we always like to give a special shout out to all of our compadres from that responded to the World Trade Center on 9/11, and we lost so many people. Not just on that day, we're continuing to lose people from 9/11 cancer and all these kind of these 9/11 diseases that they never saw before. So I just want to shout out to all first responders.
Yeah, I agree with you.
What kind of work are you doing up there right now in Mass now?
I'm still writing. I just had a textbook published on research methods, and I have an article. My two main research interests are policing, psychology of policing, and then a second one, you met my son earlier, is deafness and the psychology of deafness, as well as language, or my hypothesized language deprivation that some deaf people go through because they're born into hearing families. So they don't learn language from their families. They learn it once they go to school.
Yeah, that's interesting that you said that. I grew up with I had a friend that was deaf growing up. Well, I met him as a teenager, but I know that he went to the deaf school in our neighborhood, and we used to party, man.
Yeah.
We used to, and he would scream. We were riding around in the story park.
You should do a comedy bit on that one.
And when he would get, well, because we would get fired up all night. We were getting fired, and then in the convertible, like in the back seat, and he'd be like, Evan, calm down, we're gonna get pulled over.
That's funny.
It's an interesting thing, like the just with the deaf, because more people should know the language. I'm embarrassed that I don't know it. We should all. That's what if you want to teach something in school, for crying out loud, you want to add something to the curriculum right now instead of all these freaking nonsense they want to add sign language. I mean, that is the ground. That's a ground ball. It's another language. You can help everybody fit in, and you can even communicate with each other sometimes if you had to be quiet. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, my husband and I will, use sign language, and we're both hearing. We just want to say something. He's on the other side of the room,
Mm-hmm.
and but I have to say that we are not. My son is fluent in American Sign Language. I'm a continual learner of American Sign Language because it is a hard language to learn because it's not English.
I mean, think about how interesting it is too. You could actually talk about other people in front of them.
Yeah.
You don't have to go to another. It's not like you got to do another. Oh, I know what you're saying. I speak Greek. You didn't know I was. But how many people know sign language? You look at this idiot. You know what I'm saying? This guy's talking shit.
I have a funny story. I have a friend who's deaf, and because of my interest in law enforcement and deaf people, and we were talking. And she said that she would always be able to sign her way out of a ticket if she got pulled over by a police officer.
So brilliant.
Because the officer wouldn't understand sign language and feel sorry for her.
Yeah.
She was pulled over in Hartford, Connecticut. And Hartford is where the first American school for the deaf was. Wow. And almost 200 years ago, a long time ago. So a lot of the cops there know sign language. So tried the same shtick with this officer. Yeah, and he gave her a ticket. He goes, I know it. ASL.
He goes, you're not pulling this shit over here again tonight. Somebody told me about you.
I had a job one time on patrol, and actually two of my cops had it with a deaf couple. And it was a domestic dispute, and they were so patient with it. When I got there, I was like, "Bring it into the station house. You got to be kidding me!" It was like there was no communication, and the husband, was like a big, strong guy, and we wound up locking him up on another time, not that night, but not because he kept like stalking her. He had a kid with her, but the job, I mean, it was a joke, and the police department, they have people that do sign language, but good luck getting them on a 4-to-1. Everyone that has some special skill in the police department works 8 to 4s, and then sprints out the door.
The one thing that we had that was really cool though was the interpreters. We used to have a phone, and if you had somebody, I had somebody in a robbery, and they were Asian, so I had to figure out what type of Chinese they spoke. And then I called up. There was a phone. We had a phone, and it had two receivers on it. So I give the one to my victim, and I would have the other one. I was like, ask him what the guy who put the gun to his head looked like, and then the guy would tell him. He would speak Chinese to him, and then he would tell me. Then he would tell me back.
That's funny, and because you say that, when I was finishing my master's in forensic psych, I was working at Bellevue in the forensic psych ward, and you guys might remember this guy. He was a Chinese man who had been smuggled over here and was really somebody's slave. The guy treated him like a slave. So he had had enough and he killed the guy.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And he was locked up in Rikers and he killed his cellmate at Rikers. So that's when they shipped him over to Bellevue. But he spoke like some, his form of Chinese was like some very remote province. And we had to go to NYU to get a professor of Chinese, that spoke that particular dialect. And what was funny was that she was doing the MMPI and we were in the room with her and him. And because he was from such a remote province, he didn't know, they're talking about like cultural affinity for these things. He didn't know half of what she was talking about. It made no sense. So the chief psychologist pulled us out of the room and left her in there. And so he was saying, well, this is what we're talking about with people and culture. And, he doesn't even know what a magazine is or a lady's purse. And in the meantime, the interpreter was in the room and it was a woman. She was petrified because she knew that, he had killed 2 people, but we could still see her. And then we started laughing because the look on her face, we're like, look at her face. She's so scared, which probably isn't nice, but it was funny.
No, but what's funny is that you just reminded me, we had a detective in the 2-6 and, we're all there for some reason we were in the sergeant's office and we're talking with this perp. And all of a sudden, for some reason, 2 of us get called away and it's just one guy, Angel, in the room. Well, I was in one of the offices, but it was 3 other guys. 2 guys get called out, and then it's just Angel in the room there. And all of a sudden, all you hear is boom, 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 boom. Like they were fighting in there. And from what I remember, the story goes, they were all looking through the window of the sergeant's office, watching him get beat up until it was time to come in. Like, oh, ah.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
I was on the desk one time in the 2-4, and this guy comes in, he starts speaking French to me. And I'm like, and I look next to me, and there's this guy, I won't say his last name, but he's Haitian, and he speaks fluent French. And I'm floundering there for like 10 minutes. And I turn to him, I go, Patrick, don't you speak French? He goes, yes. I go, then why aren't you helping me? And then he starts talking. I was like, I wanted to kill the guy, like he was he was fine with sitting there and doing nothing. And if I didn't know he spoke French,
wasn't paying attention.
He wouldn't have volunteered.
we used to have this sergeant, I forget what his name was, Del Peruta or something like that. They used to mess with him real something awful. Gullible, nice guy, but gullible. So we had another cop there, and he used to pretend like he used to read the Chinese newspaper in front of him. So he got his hands on a Chinese newspaper, and he's got it opened up. So somebody calls the sergeant's office and asks for a Chinese interpreter. And he goes, no, I don't think we have anybody. He goes, no, yeah, look it up on the paper there, Albrecht. He's a Chinese. So all of a sudden he goes, really? He goes, hey, Dave, do you speak Chinese? He closes the Chinese newspaper. He goes, yeah, I'm fluent. So then he picks up the phone and he just starts doing ding, ding, dong, ding. He just hands it. The things we used to, it's so funny because the guy fell for it. It was, he really thought it was, from that point on, he thought Dave was a Chinese interpreter.
Well, it's just like when you come on the job in the police academy, they give you an index card and they say, what special skills do you have? And I remember there was this one guy who used to work with us in the 2-0. He spoke like 8 languages. You know what that got him? Put him on a wire. Put him on a wire for years. He was so.
Oh yeah. The Russian guy.
He told him, yeah. He was so sorry.
You talking about the Russian detective, the little guy?
No. This guy was like, he was Italian, but he spoke like 7 or 8 languages. And he wound up, every time they needed someone to listen to a wire, he was stuck on a wire for years.
Yeah, there was a Russian guy, and he was stuck on a wire for years doing the Russian mob thing. And somehow, excuse my French here, but there's a term that you use in the police department. You say he stepped on his dick. That means he fucked up. Somehow, because you start thinking you're too big for your britches. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, how many Afghani interpreters do they have? And guess what? The next class they have 3. So, because you start getting stuck up. You're like, no, I won't do that, and I won't do this, and you're the only one. And next thing you know, the next class comes out. They got 3 people speaking the same language, so you're out. They bounced you out. Well, that's what happened. He had to go to a squad. He was living high in the hawk for a while, man. He was doing major cases, that guy.
That's crazy.
But it got to his head.
Where do you see the future of policing in this country going if this stuff continues?
That's a good question, and I've thought about it. We need the police. We definitely need the police. But there are people only because of a political ideology just want to get rid of the police, which is impossible. You cannot do that. We can't. We each other, individuals, we're part of a social contract with each other to behave in a certain way, and you need the police as protectors. You also need them to solve terrible crimes. What I see for the next next 2 years, I don't know, and I only say that because something else is going to happen, and those woke people, the cancel culture, are going to turn their attention somewhere else. But I think probably for the next 2 years, police are going to be walking on a tightrope.
Yeah, I think it's gonna change quicker than that. Like, it's too much right now. I think the tide is turning. You can see it all around the country. As a matter of fact, I'm trying to think of the one city in California. I don't know what the city. I forget the city. Right? It could be San Bernardino or something. They just last week announced the highest budget for the police department over there. So this is in California, where they're looking to recall the governor.
Yeah.
And Caitlyn Jenner's up and looks like a phenomenal candidate who happens to be a Republican.
Yeah.
Very conservative. So that's the direction a lot of these states have had enough. So I think it's going to happen quicker than 2 years. As a matter of fact, we're going to go through a summer here in New York City where we're going to be tested, and we're going to be tested throughout the country in these big metropolises. And we're going to see, because, we could all hit that wall at the same time. Like, enough is enough. This is absolute nonsense. Because anybody who lives in a big city knows the summertime is the time where most of the crime happens, because you have more hours of daylight. There's more freaking people out. The weather's nicer on the East Coast. That's when people get killed. That's when people get shot.
Angela Eng said, the sergeant on the desk asked me if I was fluent in Chinese. I told him not before 6 and never after 8. She wants her OT.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. Yeah. I speak Spanish, and I remember, once that gets out and you're in the squad, forget it. Anytime they need somebody interviewed, and I didn't mind it either, because it actually sharpened my Spanish. Since I've retired, I don't have an opportunity to speak it as much, and it's the more you practice, the sharper you are. for somebody who grew up here and, you know, learned Spanish from his great grandmother up until the age of 5, 6, I spoke pretty good when I was on the job. I wouldn't say I could break you in an interrogation using Spanish, but at least I can get a couple things out of you.
What's the best rice and beans in Washington Heights?
Well, you know, remember Cracked Chicken over there? What was the name of that place?
Chirpin' Chicken?
No, Cracked Chicken we used to call it, but it was oh man, it was a
160.
There was the rotisserie chicken place over there, but the chicken was so good. We used to call it. It was like crack. So we used to call it Cracked Chicken.
What does mofongo mean? So many restaurants in the Heights are called mofongo.
Mofongo is when you use plátanos, but not the sweet ones, the green ones, and you kind of sort of squish them up. Use that thing, you squish it up, and you make it, and then you put either you put garlic in there. That's a big thing, to put garlic in there, and then you could either put shrimp on top, or you could put there's different types of mofongo, but shrimp is probably one of the most popular ones. Shrimp mofongo. Inside it too, you put the shrimp.
And what's the fried bananas again? I remember I used to eat that. I was thinking that must be 2,200 calories per bite. Those fried bananas.
You know, the funny thing is, you grew up with plátano.
Yeah.
You know, and if you know anything about history, plátano, it's not even a real. It was a combination of potato and something else that they made for they created for the slaves, so they could feed them.
Wow.
Yeah.
I always thought it was a banana.
Well, it's not even a real thing. It's a potato mixed with a banana or something like that.
Wow.
And, yeah, they could mass produce it, and it was for slaves. Look at my cousin Dwayne Vasquez. Look at that. I remember we talked a lot about we were kids. It was cool. But yeah, it's just so funny. I'm looking at the comments over here. My cousin Dwayne, he lives in Colorado. No, he lives in Tampa right now. And we used to play together in Washington Heights over there.
You know, I remember a lot of the detectives in the 3-4, even the white detectives, they worked up there for years. They spoke pretty good Spanish just from learning at work, you know?
Yeah, you have to know, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, I felt like the retard walking in, the white boy from the suburbs, you know?
Oh.
And I'm like, I understood like a couple of words from taking high school Spanish, but, you know, it really also could save your life, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Policía no se mueva!
Yeah, you'd be surprised how many white boys know how to speak Spanish.
Well, we had a lineup one time, and all the fillers were cops, and the perp didn't know it, and he started confessing to them in Spanish, and he didn't know they were cops. And then they came back in their uniforms, and he was like, "Oh no!"
Wow. Did the confession hold up?
Oh yeah, and he was picked out in the lineup too. So, but then he admitted. He pointed to me and someone else. He goes, "Those are the two bastards who locked me up." I thought that was funny.
Those are some of the best communities to work in. You know, they're really, you know, food's always great. You know, I worked in the 110 to 115, man. That was the best. I locked up. I told you this. I think I said this before on the show. I locked up Batman one night. It was Halloween. Colombian guy driving drunk, and he was in a Batman costume. So when you lock somebody up for drunk driving, rather than voucher their stuff, you'd rather call somebody up and have him come and pick it up. His wallet, his little, you know, his pinky ring, his watch, his keys. So turns out it's his wife. So you know, I have her sign the memo book. I give her the stuff, and she says to me, little Spanish lady, "Could I say something to him?" I said, "Yeah, we're in the 112. Now in the 112, if you go in their precinct, from the desk sergeant's where he sits to where the cells are, it's like a 15, 20 yards. It's far." Like, so I go, I'm talking to the guy, another cop there. I go, yeah, go talk to him. He's cuffed to a pole. So I said, yeah, go talk to him. So I'm talking to the cop I hear, like, she's walking over there. All of a sudden, she starts punching him. bang, 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 bang. And then the cop that was there, he goes, yo, I think Batman's getting fucked up right now. So I look home. Fucking,
Was it his wife?
Yeah, it was his wife. He was cuffed, so he couldn't defend himself. He said, bah, bah. And he's like, oficial, oficial. He's calling me officer. Oficial.
Yeah.
Come and save me.
That's funny. That is funny.
Yeah. She beat the shit out of me. I had to go rip her off. Batman got fucked up that night. Anyway, we're coming to an end right now. We got to give a shout out to all the people that tuned in tonight.
Yeah, let's see who we got here. Peter Pranza, always here. Joan Guerrero, 12-Step Woman, Boxing MMA. Ryan Investigative Group, Bill Ryan. Timmy Costa, thank you so much. Joe Murray, the great attorney Joe Murray, thank you so much. Sandra Rivera, MC's Audio. Joan Guerrero, I may have said you twice, but Randy Malcolm Lavina. New York City, 1919, Michael Marcaculi. MC's Audio again, Joan Guerrero again. Scotty Wagner. Of course, the big attorney. Oscar Ferrafino's here all the time. He was Queen's Homicide. Oscar, you came here late. You would have loved the joke. I was in the SBA today, and all these sergeants in suits walked by where they were with Ed Mullins. And I looked at them all, and I said, this place is a fire hazard. And they looked at me, and I said, look at all this dead wood. I used my famous joke. They didn't like it, but it was funny as hell.
Hey, I want to give
Randy Malcolm Lavina, Joan. I think Robert 123. I think I got everybody.
I want to give a shout out to the first precinct, the cops that have the post. You know, nowadays there actually has to be cops standing in front of the precinct.
Wow.
That's like an actual post, not just one. There's two in this front, and then there's one around the corner. But I was shooting the album cover for my comedy album, and we shot it in front of the first precinct. It's going to be pretty cool. I'm hoping that it turns out the way I want it. It's me standing in front of the precinct holding a microphone stand, and then they're throwing like Molotov cocktails at me, and there's like graffiti on the wall, like fuck the police and shit like that. And I'm like ducking out of the way like that. So that's the idea, the premise for the comedy album.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And
go ahead, Mark. I thought you were done.
No. I just wanted to say, we should mention the meet and greet that we have, Bill.
Yeah, I was just going to do that on Tuesday, 5/18 at 7 p.m., 350 West 46th Street at Bar Dough Restaurant, which is owned by retired Captain Joe Lisi, who's not just a retired captain; he's the most successful actor in NYPD history of a former member of the service. Call up, make reservations. Mark and I are going to be there to meet and greet. We'll kiss babies. We'll shake hands. We'll take photos with you. We'll give paw prints. I don't think anyone would want our autograph, but we'd love to see you come there, and it's going to be a great night.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fun. I'm excited.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great. Aviva, you got any last words? You got anything you're plugging? Anything you're pushing?
Just look out for my article. I'm submitting it to.
Where do we find these articles?
This is one that I've written. They're in
where do you put them?
Like
which one?
They're academic journals. Like the one I'm submitting is, I'm going to submit it to the Journal of Theoretical Criminology.
Yeah, because I read all the academic journals, so I just wanted to know which one.
Yeah, you read them.
I belong to the Society of Police and Criminal Psychology, and I have been for 21 years. And they have a great journal. But
do you have a blog and stuff too? Do you do any other type of? Because I wanted, before we go, let me ask you about you, because you mentioned you write. So tell me about your writing process, because I write, Bill writes. What's your writing process like? You wake up tomorrow morning and tell us what your day is like.
Well, I'm working what we used to call in acting a job, but so usually it starts like with an idea when I write, and it's something that pesters me until I start doing research on it, whether I'm looking up terms on Google or looking at journals that might discuss it. And it just kind of germinates from this idea, and then I can start writing something. And academic writing is weird because even if it's not, you're not doing hypothesis testing, but you're doing more of a theoretical piece, you still have to like come up with some type of statement, you know.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So that can be hard. It's like trying to articulate that. But that's my process. And once I'm able to do that and concretely, so that I understand what I'm talking about or what I want to talk about, and then I just start writing. And
How many hours a day are you putting into that? Like,
I can put in up to 3 hours a day.
really?
Yeah.
I found the days when I was writing a lot, when I was writing my one-man show and creating whatever act I was doing, 8, 10 hours could. I remember I had to go pick up my kids from school, and I'd still be in my bathrobe, and it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I
That
woke
was
up.
when he thought he was Rodney Dangerfield, you know?
No, it was just because you get in front of the computer and you start like, for some people, I think writing it comes a little bit easier, but for me, oh, you know what? Forget about that. I want to ask you one more question before we go. When we talk about the police officers that become police officers and the traits, tell me, because a lot of these cops that are coming on right now, they have college degrees. Not only do they have the 60 required credits, but these people that are yelling and spitting and cursing and throwing Molotov cocktails at these officers, a lot of them have the 4-year degrees, and they chose to come on this job because they wanted to make a difference.
Right.
So, which cops are better off at handling those type of situations? That cop or the guy who, like me, I graduated high school, but not far from the top of my class. And then my little college that I had, but or you came from the military, those guys, the GED guys, because you can get on with a GED.
Um, I think, I think one of the reasons, like Massachusetts had the Quinn bill, and it paid to give raises to officers who got their bachelor's, and then also a pay raise to those who got masters. But then they stopped it. But the rationale behind it was a better educated cop is going to be a better cop.
But do you think that's true, though?
I really don't think that it's true, because this is the people who major in criminal justice, and that was what I was teaching in like those departments. They're not really getting the full curriculum. So you'd have these kids who were cop wannabes, and they were never going to be cops. You just knew it. And then you'd have police officers who already had that experience. So what are you going to teach them? If that makes any sense, what I'm saying. So,
well, I meant it like a little rougher around the edges. You know what I'm saying? I think that's what's more important when it comes to becoming a police officer. I don't know how much the college actually helps, or being an academic when you actually have to get your hands dirty and you're working in the street. But we'll bring that back on another day. We'll have you back and we'll finish the story.
Yeah,
Mark,
because
I just want to mention who we got coming up next week. On Monday, we have a Dr. Richard Schobel, who is an expert on human trafficking, and he's going to come on the show. Tuesday, we have Tommy Dades, the great first-grade detective who put away the mafia cops. He's going to be on with Phil Grimaldi. And Thursday, we have the Nassau County Police Commissioner, Patrick Ryder's coming on.
That is amazing.
Yeah, it's going to be great. And he reached out to us. He was former NYPD, and that's going to be a great show.
I want to see when my number's coming up. I'm still waiting to get on that job.
On the Nassau job, I don't think you can. Don't hold your breath.
It took that test 22 years ago. I think my number's coming up. Well, thank you so much, Aviva.
I have a former student who's a lieutenant here in Massachusetts. He's a guy who gets his hands dirty all the time, and he's rough around the edges, but what a gentleman. I would love to bring him.
Well, we were trying to get the guys from the police department near Boston that shot it out with the Zarnaev brothers. In fact, I have one of the sergeants who wanted to come on the show, but he's not that. He wanted to do it live in a studio, and we stopped doing it in the studio. It's actually his last name's McClellan, and he was coming on. He was one of the guys that shot it out with the Boston Marathon bombers.
Yeah.
Tamerlan and Dzhokhar Zarnaev. Yeah. What a story that was. I would love to have them on,
That was something.
Yeah. So
NYC 1919 says great show. Thank you. Thank you, NYC 19.
all our fans who are listening, thank you so much. And on behalf of Bill Cannon and Mark DeMeo and Dr. Aviva Twersky, good night from Police Off the Cuff.
Good night.
Good night.